Hello there, it's Steve-O here from the Elite FPL podcast, and I'm fully aware that this is the third time I have done a live stream today. And I cannot thank you enough for, at any point, you joining me live. I'm fully aware this is ludicrous. The fact that I've done 3 today. One that I did at 20 to 4 in the morning, UK time. The reason why I did that is because I found out that 5 player prices were launched. And I just thought, do you know what, for a laugh, so to speak, I thought, do you know what, I'll do a live stream and just see if anybody will watch. But I just wanted to give my quite literally live reaction to 5 player price releases. And then fast forward about 6 hours, I'm on Twitter and I see a well-known face from YouTube, JNO in the FPL community, basically saying that the game had launched. And I thought to myself, assuming you're mistaken, but I'll check my mobile. Lo and behold, the game is launched. I was flabbergasted, and as you guys who joined me earlier on, again, thank you so much for joining me at approximately 2:30 I think I went live, maybe a bit earlier, but beside the point. You joined me in watching me reacting quite literally live to the game launch. And now we're here. Now, I honestly wanted to do now this evening with the 3 of us, all 3 presenters together again. I want it to be myself, Dan and Jason, as Dan always says, the 3 amigos together talking this game. I didn't even want to speak. I just wanted to monitor chat, let you guys talk, and let Dan and Jason give their opinion on the game, what they thought of the prices, etc. Unfortunately, due to circumstances and work commitments, neither of them could join us. So I thought to myself, right then, well, I've got nothing better to do, so I may as well do another live stream. Now, as you can see up in front of you now, this is the team that I've personally selected. So I just want to a quick say hello to anybody that's joined me in chat right now. So hello there to John Harris. If anybody in chat, by the way, can let me know what the sound's like, I'd really appreciate it. So I actually got a lot of feedback from my second podcast today that the sound was amazing. I then reviewed it and realised how loud I was because I was really close to the microphone. I'm hoping it sounds okay, so I'm kind of keeping my voice down a bit, but Clement LaRue, hello there. Cameron Rawcliffe, hello there. We all know we've got a big announcement for you. And people may be wondering what that's all about. So, hello there, Alex A. Unfortunately, I don't think they've been added to the game. He's asking if Pulisic or Tammy Abraham, no, none of those players have been added. No, I'm afraid not. I'm not being rude. I'm going to close off the chat because I've got quite a bit to say. And the chat, as much as I love talking to you guys, distracts me, and I don't want to keep going on tangents. So the point of what I was getting at was the fact that unfortunately Dan and Jason can't join me tonight, so I just thought, to hell with it, I'm going to do it. And anybody that follows us on Twitter or is in the dashboard, I just said, right, I'm going live at 6 o'clock. I'm a bit late, but it has no relevance. So prior to doing this, the reason why I'm late, there's a reasoning for why I'm late. And it's, as you can see here, that piece of paper there is of every team in the Premier League. And I've written down the players' names of which I think are standouts from each individual team. Players that we're more than likely going to be looking at. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. This is going to take a while. I haven't written down every name, obviously. But all these players here, and when I start reading them off, you'll understand where I'm going with this. all these players are worth considering as of right now, game week 1, and all the information we have at hand right now. Before I do that, the people that joined me for the team price player game, which I did the other day, where I invited people to create their realistic team with what they thought the prices would be for game week 1. So, I obviously took part as a default. Clement LaRue, he entered the team. Cameron Rawcliffe, who's in chat at the moment, aka the FPL Kid on Instagram, he entered. We had Axe Policio, Ray Joyce, and Sultan Saeed. Well, I can tell you the winner of this game by default was Cameron Rawcliffe, aka FPL Kid. Cameron got 8 out of 15 correct prices. The reason why he won by default is because Ray Joyce... Now, I did state that you could just put in 4 million defenders if you wished, without naming the player. But when I was kind of totaling this all up, I was thinking, well, hold on a minute, it's kind of cheating there, because you could have just done that with anybody. But I did make the point, the fact that you could only do that with bench fodder. But the point being is that Cameron, he actually named his full 15, and he got 8 out of the 15 players' prices correct. So I'll just quickly run through briefly who he got right. So Foster, Henderson. The reason why I've given him Henderson is because looks like he is going to be joining Sheffield United. Trent Alexander-Arnold at that shocking price of 7 million. Mane, 11.5. Grealish at 6. Sterling, 12. McGinn, 5.5. And Aguero at 12. Anyhow, so congratulations, Cameron, there. You will be winning an exclusive Elite FPL mug. I know you're active on Instagram. Again, for anybody that would like to follow Cameron, it's at the FPL Kid. If you want to contact me and give me your address details and everything, and what we will do is we will arrange at some point to send you off an exclusive Elite FPL mug with some witty kind of slogan on it saying "I'm the price predictor king" or something like that. I'm sure Jason will come up with something. Like I say, I'll more than happily stump up the cash to flame and get it done, but it just helps promotion of this specific podcast. But back to today. So the game was launched, and on Twitter earlier, if I bring it up now, on Twitter what I did was I put up a poll regarding what you felt was more shocking. So here's our page here, and the poll was quite simply, what did you guys find more shocking today? And I just gave 2 answers, which was the launch of the game or Salah's price. And as you can see so far, just the 12 votes, and it's 100% launch of the game, and I couldn't agree more. Although Salah being 12.5 I just think is disgusting, but we'll come on to that in a minute. So once we get out of that, let's get on with this. So let's get back to the FPL site itself. Right then, so like I said, I've written down what I believe to be the standout players that the majority of us would pick from a fantasy football perspective, give or take. Obviously, you know, there are literally hundreds of players to choose from. But for me, when looking at each individual team, there are standout names that come to mind. So now I'm hoping this works. If it doesn't, for some strange reason, on this laptop, I can't seem to be able to... No, it's not working. It's very peculiar. What I'd have to do is quite literally type in the name. But, so there's my team there right now. But you can look at it if you want. It means nothing really. But so we'll start with Arsenal first. And the key names that stick out for me were Kolasinac. He's coming at 5.5. Monreal at 5.0. We all know his attacking potential. Aubameyang, 11 million. I'm genuinely taken aback by that. I thought he'd be a bit more expensive, maybe 11.5, maybe even pushing 12 million, considering his score last season. I mean, you know, top scoring FPL forward last year in Aubameyang, only 11 million, considering Aguero's 12. I know they play for two different teams. Obviously, Man City being the better team. Don't laugh, Dan. But in all seriousness, I'm quite surprised by Aubameyang's price there. Moving on to Aston Villa, obviously there was a contentious thought process regarding Jack Grealish. What would he come in at? Would it be 5.5? Would it be 6? Would it be 6.5? Well, he's coming at 6. He's coming at 6 million. But I've been told that the other player, McGinn, for Aston Villa, could actually be a better option. And he is only 5.5. And like I said, I've been told that, like I've been told personally, I've been told that actually he's the better option than Grealish. So maybe somebody to monitor there. Moving on to Bournemouth. Obviously Fraser's price was released earlier. David Brooks, somebody in which we all thought, I mean, I think people were being very optimistic, saying that him at 5.5, I thought that was like 0.5 more than what he was last season. I can't see that, but 6.5, I just think is, for me personally, I think is just too expensive. I think that Brooks, although then again, I'm fully aware he did really, really well last season. I'm not stupid to think that he didn't, but I just think that for an extra million more, I think Fraser's worth every penny. Wilson coming in at 8, and of course Josh King coming in at 6.5, I think could be a potential bargain there. I think that for, again, Josh King's potential attacking returns, I mean, last season getting 12 goals and 3 assists. I mean, you think about that now for 6.5. It's outstanding value. Moving on to Brighton. Our double game week troll in Duffy coming in at 5 million. I'm assuming that's quite simply based on his attacking returns last year, because there is no way that can be based on anything other than that, because I just think that Duffy, so he scored 5 goals, 2 assists. I think Duffy at 5 million, I think that's just outrageous. No way is he worth that. But I was listening to the Planet FPL podcast today with their Brighton correspondent, and he said that Bernardo is the one to be looking at, and he's at 4.5. Then we've got Gross, however you want to pronounce it, 6.5. And Anthony Knockaert, who, again, one of those players where on his day, he really could be somebody to be bringing in. If he really does, I forget who the Brighton manager is now, but for 5.5, not a bad price. On to my guys, Burnley. All the goalkeepers are 4.5. It's just a toss of the coin which one will start. Well, it ain't going to be Joe Hart. So it's down to Heaton and Pope. And like I mentioned, Tom Heaton is reluctant in signing a new contract. So it may come down to Pope. But I reckon Dyche will stick with Heaton. Charlie Taylor, Matt Loughton and Phil Bardsley at 4.5. They're your bargains. I think that the price of those three, 4.5 for a Burnley defender, attacking fullbacks, I think if we kick on the season, start the season well, you're in for some bargains there. I'm genuinely flabbergasted by McNeil coming in at 6 million. So last season he was just a 4.5 player. Obviously he broke into the team second half of the season. I think he's only like 19, 20 years old. I really don't know, but 6 million for a Burnley midfielder. No, they've just priced him out of the game. He plays for Burnley. You know, we're not exactly that attacking, and then that brings us on to Woods and Barnes, both at 6.5. Again, I think just a bit too expensive there. Something that I did notice about the game is that maybe you guys have noticed is that there's not many budget options to choose from. The game has almost been really kind with the popular picks, i.e. Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Digne, Salah, etc. But all the quote-unquote bench fodder type players like McNeil as an example, all players that you may think may come through at a decent price, i.e. Woods and Barnes, just be priced out of the game in my opinion now, unless, sorry to keep going on about it, but Woods and Barnes really tear it up, then there are better options, and we'll come on to them in a minute. Chelsea is the one that really stood out for me, and it's the defenders. I mean, Alonso, 6.5, I think's a bit... I don't get this. I don't understand how this game has gone with prices this year, but Alonso, who lost his place to Emerson, is 1 million more than Emerson. So Alonso at 6.5, Emerson 5.5. I would have done it so, not necessarily the other way round, but I would have made it Alonso and Emerson 6 million. The same as Azpilicueta. Azpilicueta, the most consistent Chelsea defender, I think, from a fantasy perspective, is one of the cheapest Chelsea defenders to buy. Again, don't understand that thinking. I'm actually seriously tempted of bringing him in, if I'm honest with you, because to be fair, they've got some decent opening fixtures, to be fair. Let's just have a look at their opening fixtures as an example. So, other than Man United away, which, let's be honest here, isn't really that difficult. Leicester at home, Norwich away, Southampton at home, Wolves away. In fact, if anything, of the opening 6-7 fixtures, so opening 6 fixtures, Liverpool and Wolves are their hardest by far. Then look at that run after that. Beautiful sea of green there. So certainly Chelsea are definitely a team worth monitoring, especially from a defensive point of view. And I picked up on Giroud at 7 million. I think that's really, really good pricing, that. The question is though, will he actually be number one? Well, in my opinion, he should be. Crystal Palace, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, well, he's off to United. They priced him at 5.5, that's fair enough. And Zaha being reclassified as a midfielder, I think makes complete sense to me. 7 million, good price. I don't know what their opening fixtures are like, so let's have a quick look here. But for 7 million, I think that's really, really good value. Not bad. Opening at home to Everton, I mean, their home form is terrible, but then away at Brighton, that's not too bad. Away at United, again, not too bad. And then Aston Villa at home. Decent fixtures there. So really it's the Tottenham game that stands out, and maybe Wolves at home as well, where I'd probably be avoiding Crystal Palace. Everton, Digne, 6 million, makes complete sense. Richarlison and Siggy, I'm surprised that these are both 8 million. I would have thought Sigurdsson would be 0.5 more, but they've priced them both the same. And again, I think the game's being... I was thinking about this earlier, what I initially reacted at, and is the game being a bit too clever in the sense of, right, let's price similar players in the same team at a similar price, so then people have to choose between which one, but then it just makes it easier to swap to those players. So let's just say, for argument's sake, Richarlison, you've got Richarlison and it's Sigurdsson that's the one that's tearing it up. Well, you could just easily swap out Richarlison for Sigurdsson. But if Sigurdsson was 0.5 more expensive, then it's a different story. But they've just made that a bit too easy. And then, of course, Coleman at 5.5. Obviously, a lot of people mentioning that the fact that Coleman had a really strong end to last season, 5.5. Could be worth it over Digne, but at the moment for me, Digne's the one to have just simply based on set pieces. Moving on to Leicester, it's only two real ones for me that stand out. I'm not even going to mention Pereira because he was never going to be an option. Leicester's defence, never an option, but Maddison at 7 million, that's a fair price, and Vardy at 9, again another fair price. Now moving on to the contentious ones. These prices here for Liverpool, I truly think are just... I don't know what's going on here. I think they've been easy picks, to be honest with you. I think that Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold at 7 million each is just too cheap, and it just makes them... Oh yeah, of course. It just makes them auto picks, in my honest opinion. As you can see, I've both got them. I've both got both Trent Alexander and Robbo. 15 million between them for the amount of points they got last season. Now, for all I know, they could regress. They could have the worst season of their lives. Let's be honest here, they're not going to. They just improve year on year. And I can see just almost the same as what they did last season, to be honest with you. And I think for 7 million, I think it's too cheap. I think if both were 7.5, then there's a different conversation where you're thinking, well, can I really afford having two Liverpool fullbacks at 15 million? In my opinion, yeah. But that's me. For many others, they'd only choose one. But for 14 million, it's worth the risk. And again, you can easily swap them out for someone like Aspilicueta, save yourself £1 million. Van der Vaart at, of course, 6.5. I think again, very cheap, understandable, but I think maybe he could have come in at 7 million as well, matching their prices. I think the biggest surprise for me was Salah at 12.5. I can't work that one out. Does the game this season want us to be able to afford the best players? Is Aguero really 0.5 worse than Salah? Or sorry, is Salah 0.5 better than Aguero? I just think that, even though again, Salah at 13 million, I was going to choose him anyway, depending on Mane's price, who came in at 11.5. 12.5 is just so cheap. I really do think the game is just trying to make it more accessible, if I'm honest with you. Like I've already mentioned, Mane coming in at 11.5. I think that was writing on the wall there, wasn't it? Him coming in at that price. And again, I can't see him regressing at all this season. I think, again, even if he does regress, it's not going to be by much. You know, he got 22 goals last season. He's what? If we're going to be pessimistic, get 17. You know, each season he's been in the Premier League, he's got double-figure goals. But this time, Klopp's playing him in a more advanced centre role occasionally. So maybe that's why his assists have gone down. Moving on to Man City, Laporte, of course, 6.5. As you can see there, straight at my team. At the end of the day, you've got to have a Man City defender, and Laporte is just guaranteed. One player that I was shocked at, Zinchenko. I think Zinchenko at 5.5. He played the last, what did we see the other day? It was the last 13 games of the season. 5.5, I think. If he starts the season, I think that for $1 million less than Laporte, okay, potential rotation risk with Mendy. Mendy, another one coming in at 6. Does that make sense? Well, yes, of course it does. But considering how his season went, yes, he started off worth every penny under the sun at the start of last season, and he just dropped off due to well, let's be honest here, his personal life and injuries. And Pep just got sick of it and dropped him, and Zinchenko took over. So I think Zinchenko at 5.5 is an absolute steal. Sterling at 12, Aguero at 12, but the big one is Kevin De Bruyne at 9.5. I think it makes sense. I think everybody thought he'd be 9.5, and for the potential that Kevin De Bruyne could give us. I mean, we saw what he did in the FA Cup final once he came on. You know, what was it? 2 assists and a goal, or 1 goal and 1 assist. I can't specifically remember, but either way, once he came on the pitch at half time, I think it was half time, he absolutely tore it up. And you know, in that season there, 17-18, scoring 8 goals and getting 18 assists. It's just ludicrous. And the season before that, 6 goals, 21 assists. Well, we all know what he's like as a player. But yeah, I think 9.5, like I said, he's in my team there already. Moving on to United, Pogba, 8.5. I don't think many people are going to be choosing him. Sanchez is the one where, you know what, if he actually pulls his finger out and becomes the player that we know he once was for Arsenal and, of course, Chile, then maybe we've got a player on our hands here that could be under the radar, and for 7 million could be gold. But for now, just avoid like the plague. The biggest one that I was like, oh my goodness, was, now we don't think he's going to be, you don't think he's going to be there, but it's Lukaku, 8.5. What was it last season? He came in at 11, wasn't it? 10.5, 11 Lukaku last year. So, yeah, he was 11 million last season. I think that coming down to 8.5, and if, it's a big if, he's still at United and becomes a first teamer, we know the quality Lukaku is as a striker. He could be definitely somebody that's well underpriced, but it looks like he's going to be leaving. So, on to Newcastle, Perez and Almiron, the 2 names that most people are going to be looking at. I know Matt Ritchie's price was released. Again, I saw Capping Gaming actually mention the fact that if Matt Ritchie's on set pieces could be worth a punt. I completely agree. However, it's the fact he plays for Newcastle, and you know their clean sheet potential is poor, but certainly one to monitor. But as we know, regarding Newcastle's opening fixtures, which are, let's be honest here, pretty poor, apart from Norwich away, you know, Arsenal at home, Tottenham away, Watford at home, Liverpool away, you know, just avoid like the plague, let's be honest here. Unless somehow they do pick up some incredible form and they decide to keep some clean sheets and whatnot. On to one of the promoted teams in Norwich, Aaron's, or Aaron, however he wants to be pronounced, 4.5, which is good. Aaron's, that's good, but again, you're more buying him for assist potential rather than clean sheets. I was told by someone earlier on, again I apologise who it was, but Hernandez coming in at 5.5 could be worth, but the one that I'm most disappointed in what the game's done is Pukki at 6.5. I think Pukki at 6.5, I think it's just, you've priced him out of the game now, unless he goes on some form of ridiculous streak like Mitrovic did last season. No one's going to touch him with a barge pole. I mean, their opening fixtures aren't exactly great. Liverpool away, can you really see him doing anything there? Newcastle at home, possibly. Chelsea at home. West Ham away, Man City at home. Again, I'm stating the obvious what a lot of people, it's these fixtures here potentially where he could do something. Burnley, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Bournemouth. But until then, he is absolute wait and see. But I'm very disappointed he's coming at 6.5. Stevens of, mentioned him earlier, Stevens of Sheffield United coming in at 5 million, attacking fullback for Sheffield United. Again, I'm not literally comparing him to Trippier of Burnley when we came up in the 13-14 or 14-15 season, but I think this guy is going to be very similar to Trippier, where he had all the... Well, he gave what he got last season regarding the amount of assists and goals he got, but can he replicate that in the Premier League? In my opinion, the answer is simply no, he can't. I think as a lot of people say about Sheffield United, that they're going to be stubborn and determined to win, to grind out results. They're going to make it difficult like Burnley do. And I just don't see Ender Stevens being worth the 5 million. But I could be proven wrong. Moving on to Southampton. Redmond, 6.5, potential out of position. He's midfielder and could be playing up front. James Ward-Prowse at 6 million. Big price for him. He was 5, of course. Had gone up by 1 million. I think they may have priced him out the game, possibly. And Shane Long going up to 5 million. I say going up, he stays at 5 million, more to the point. Spurs are the interesting one for me. All their defenders basically coming at 5.5. You know, people like Danny Rose, Trippier, Alderweireld, Vertonghen. Fantastic picks for 5.5. Son coming in at 9.5. I was quite surprised at that price. I thought maybe at a push. Well, not at a push, but I certainly thought, minimum, maybe even maximum of 9. 9.5, I just think, especially with Kane being only 11, which brings me on to Kane being 11. Dele Alli, only 8.5. Again, I think maybe if he came in at 8, maybe someone to look at, but 8.5, just for me, just price him out. Moving on to Watford, we're nearly there, we're nearly finished. I'll be able to interact with you guys in a bit, but nearly finished. Moving on to Delafeu of Watford, again a player which stands out for me. Reclassified as a forward, coming in at 6.5. Again, could be somebody to put in your forward line, but I haven't really looked at their fixtures, to be honest with you, what they're like. Nothing particularly great, although Brighton at home and West Ham at home and Newcastle away do look enticing. So again, classic thing of maybe one to monitor, but we know his quality. West Ham, all their defenders coming at 4.5. Fabianski at 5. As you can see, I've already got him in. I've got him in as a set and forget, basically because we all know how good he is with the save points. Anderson and Antonio coming both in at 7. I think they're definitely worth monitoring, especially Antonio's strong end to the season. Snodgrass is another one, 5.5. We all know he had that spell last season where he was returning the points. I think certainly somebody to be looking at for 5.5. But again, maybe somebody that, you could probably get someone with more reliability as a midfielder. And then Arnautovic at 7 million. And finally, we're finally there, everybody. Wolves. I don't know what was more shocking. So Doherty coming in at 6 million, I think, again, has he been priced out the game? That's the issue. I don't know. But for 6 million, I just think there are so much, more better players. But it was these two here. Not only has Jota been reclassified as a forward and coming in at 6.5, but surprisingly, it's Jimenez coming in at only 7.5. Now, everybody's banging on about their fixtures not being that particularly great, agreed. But what were they like last season against the top sides? United, Chelsea, Everton. It's the teams like Burnley, Crystal Palace, Watford that they struggled against. So maybe they could turn that form around, but so this is the team that I've come up with so far. This is, again, it's nothing set in concrete. Everybody's going to be playing around with their teams. Like I just said, Fabianski is a set and forget goalkeeper. This is going to be probably the first season I may actually do this, a set and forget goalkeeper. I think for 5 million as well, if it did end up where, potentially that Fabianski just doesn't seem to be getting the returns that he normally would, then I can easily downgrade him to a 4.5, obviously, and then I could upgrade Button to a 4.5. So I would have 2 rotating goalkeepers. My defence, my main 4, I'm going with a 4-4-2 formation as it stands, looking at the screen right now. Again, I've not really thought about formation or anything, but you know, the heavy hitting defence of Digne, Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, Laporte, Martin Kelly. I actually just listened to another podcast and they were talking about Martin Kelly potentially stepping up into Aaron Wan-Bissaka's shoes. So maybe at 4 million we could be having a starting defender, but again, it's the classic thing of look over pre-seasons. Again, another, what I think, a power 4 midfield in Fraser, Richarlison, Salah and De Bruyne. Dendoncker as just your 4.5 budget bench. I mean, my front 3 is just, you can all laugh about it. It's shambolic. I like Wilson. It's just his price of 8 million, but I'm really not fussed because I just think that if him and Fraser link up like they did last season, then you're in for a treat with Wilson. We all know what he did last season. Just to remind ourselves, getting 14 goals and 12 assists, that's just ludicrous for what he was, a 6.5 starting forward. Shane Long, we all know what he did towards the end of last season. Eventually ending up with 5 goals and 2 assists. And just for the sake of it, Isaac's success, going up to 5 million, which again I think the game's just done for the sake of, well, let's be honest here, just for the sake of not having it at 4.5 because he is a starting player. But that's me over and out. Now it's basically over to you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of this menu here and simply put, I'm going to go into the live chat and I'm going to see exactly what you guys are talking about. So just say a quick few hellos to the few people that are watching basically. So hello there to Delvin Vaz. Good evening. Kevin LaRue. Thank you for joining me. John Harris, Cameron Rawcliffe, we've already mentioned you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Alex A, already mentioned you. Hello there. G Wiz, good evening. Good evening, G Wiz. A notorious nerd, Simon Anderson. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. But yeah, if you have any questions, any thoughts, opinions, what are you thinking immediately when the game's launched and whatnot? I mean, Notorious Nerd mentioning Calvert-Lewin there, coming in at 6 million. I just think it's just, in my opinion, just too expensive for a player that did absolutely nothing last year. Let's be honest here, he was at 5.5. I think that was reasonably priced. He did nothing, and then this season they've put him up by 0.5. Yet Jota of Wolves, who absolutely tore it up, admittedly in midfield, but then he moved up front. They put him up at 6.5, and then bring in Pookie at 6.5 as a newly promoted striker. I just don't understand what the game thought process is there, to be honest with you. Simon Anderson asking, do we think Kane is the best premium striker? Well, for 11 million, I think for 11 million, Kane is definitely, I'm stating the obvious, I think he's definitely up there. Obviously, it's all down to how you structure your team. I think that at the end of the day, it may be even one of those where when I originally did my price predicting game the other day, where I was saying that I'm going to go with a 4-5-1, based on pricing and everything, possibly Harry Kane could be that one guy. We all know how consistent he is in FPL, but, here's the but, it's the fact that Aubameyang is 11 million as well. And we all know how consistent Aubameyang is. So it really, for me, right now, if I was to choose one of the two, it's too tough. I couldn't even decide to give you an answer, but I'd probably go with Aubameyang. Probably, based on the fact that Kane doesn't have a good history in August, but that means absolutely nothing, as we all know. Someone called Mosty Man. Is McNeil any good? The simple answer is yes. He's a young attacking midfielder for Burnley. But is he worth 6 million? The simple answer is definitely not no. Not when he's playing for Burnley. I think that if you're playing for a team like Burnley, Brighton, whose other defensive teams are there, I think that if you're going to be priced at 6 million, really you've got to be a consistent returner. I think that you've got to be the main man in the team, and McNeil isn't. Your main man at Burnley is going to be Goodmanson, and also Robbie Brady. Now actually, talking of Robbie Brady, let's check how much Robbie Brady is, because I think Robbie Brady could be somebody that Sean Dyche will bring back in the team. I mean, a player which just suffered with horrific injuries last year. Come back in the team after flaming doing his, I can't remember what he did now, his ACL or his Achilles or something. And then, I mean, 5 point. Then he came back and he gone and injured himself again. 5.5 million for Robbie Brady. I think that if they'd have priced McNeil at 5.5, he would be an absolute definite in my team. Our fixtures aren't too bad. You know, Southampton at home, that's got draw written all over it, but Arsenal away, they always do us 1-0, 2-1. Wolves away, well, we did okay. Well, admittedly it was at home, but we did okay. Liverpool at home, not a chance in hell. Although, again, I state this again, actually, we have actually got not a decent record against Liverpool. They still beat us, but we hold out quite well. And then, of course, this sea of green here. So, I'll tell you what, Robbie Brady's the one that you may want to monitor, if fully fit. That's my Steve-O recommendation if you're considering a Burnley player. Cameron Rawcliffe, aka the FPL Kid on Instagram. That's going to be my catchphrase for you, Cameron. Is Guaita a good choice? Palace's home form hasn't been the best, but he made some great saves. He is a good choice at 4.5. The problem is he's 5 million. And I just think that for 5 million, for a Crystal Palace goalkeeper isn't worth the money. So the simple answer is he a good choice? Yes. For the price? No. A Notorious Nerd asking a nice question. Is Vardy at 9 million being underlooked? Well, the simple answer is yes, he is. But as we all know, based on his fixtures, if we bring up Vardy now, based on his fixtures, he does like the tougher games. And Wolves at home, Chelsea away, and you got Man United and Tottenham in game week 5 and 6. I think for 9 million, but I just think that someone like, for now, to start the season with, I think Wilson or even Josh King are better placed to be having as your lone striker. Be interested to hear everybody's thoughts on formations that you're thinking of going with, like I said, with the prices now announced. It would be really interesting to hear what you're thinking of going with, because I haven't seen any 3-4-3s. I haven't seen any 3-4-3s whatsoever. Ari Rocky, hello there, welcome to the stream for the third time today, cannot thank you enough. Winston Reid, 4 million, I couldn't agree. If he's a starter, But the problem with West Ham is that, what is it, Jupe and Balbuena or Collins or whoever in the starting back two in centre back. I'm no expert on West Ham, but I couldn't agree more. For $4 million, absolute bargain if he starts. Notorious Nerd, what are your thoughts on Zaha's reclassification as a midfielder at the same price of $7 million, possibly moving to a top 6 team? Well, for $7 million at Crystal Palace, I think he's worth every penny, because for the simple fact that he is their key man, isn't he? He is the man where everything runs through. We all know what he did last season, and I can't imagine how many points Zaha would have got if he'd have stayed as a midfielder last season rather than moving into as a forward, because my understanding is he missed out on a lot of bonus points. And funny enough, FPL Boona, not that he holds a grudge or anything, but he was mentioning the point that he's still he's still a bit bitter over the fact that despite getting, I think it was 3 assists on the last day of the season, got absolutely nothing, no bonus points, because for the simple fact that he was a striker apparently. But opening fixtures, anything that stands out there, I think, is that Sheffield United? I can't blinking see that there. But whoever that is away, I thought Bournemouth. Is that Bournemouth? I can't actually see. Well, whoever that is, it's either Sheffield United or Bournemouth. If it's Sheffield United, you've got Aston Villa. So 2 of the 3 promoted clubs, and we all know Crystal Palace struggle at home. So maybe actually someone to be monitoring regarding away fixtures. But I think that certainly, and based on what you've just said, Notorious Nerd, regarding if he potentially moves to a top 6 club, then maybe this is a guy we want to be looking at, especially if he goes to Tottenham. But again, whose place will he dislodge? Again, I'm no expert on Tottenham, but whose team is he actually going to dislodge, to be honest with you? Whose place is he going to dislodge? Again, if there's any Tottenham fans out there that want to let me know who Zaha would replace, please just let me know. Brendan Davis, I think I might go set and forget when it comes to goalkeepers. I'd want a better clean sheet chance. Lloris for me at 5.5. 5.5 is one of those horrible prices where even if you go with a 4 million, you're over that £9 million budget. Me personally, I prefer the 9 million budget to myself. But yeah, absolutely. For the guaranteed clean sheets, I couldn't agree more with you there, Brendan. I think that Lloris, although Tottenham are one of those teams which they've got a good defensive record, but the reasoning is because they get one. They only concede 1 a game rather than what other teams do, which is 2, and they'll get the odd clean sheet here and there. But certainly, Lloris, can't fault, from an FPL perspective, can't fault that. Cathal Dugan, a name I'm not familiar with, so hello there, welcome to this stream. And for anybody that is new to this stream, just to let anybody know that is watching now, number one, thank you ever so much for joining me live. This is a Steve-O solo special. This is the 3rd live stream I've done today. I'm usually joined by 2 other co-hosts in my good friends Dan and Jason. The unfortunate factor is the fact that they're engaged with work and aren't able to join me this evening. So it's just me solo, and I've been doing solo podcasts for the past 2 or 3 days. I'm kind of sick to death of my own voice. But at some point, the 3 of us will be back together. Potentially tomorrow evening. I may even just check my phone to see if Jason's got back to me. But potentially tomorrow evening, myself, Dan and Jason will be together. I'll be just monitoring the chat, and I'll just let these 2 talk, to be honest with you. But what I will say is that if anybody is enjoying this setup, if anybody is enjoying these podcasts, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. As Let's Talk FPL always says, it helps. But in all seriousness, I just appreciate the fact that you guys are taking your time out to watch me, to be honest with you. For any news on when we do go live, Twitter's your best place to go. It's at Elite FPL. Give us a follow on there. And also on Instagram at Elite FPL. We're not as active, but there is a Instagram page if you want to check us out on there. But back to Cathal Dugan. And just to make this clear as well, what the three of us pride ourselves on is making these streams about you. We're not interested about us. We're interested about what you guys have to say, to be honest with you. I couldn't care less about speaking. I'd rather just do what I'm doing now, which is speaking to you live as you just basically send in the questions. I'll just happily reel them off as we go along and give you a name check as well. So yeah, back to Cathal Dugan, who just quite simply asked, is Josh King a good, cheap alternative to Wilson? The simple answer is yes, he is. That's that's about as simple as an answer as it gets. My basic, again, understanding is that towards the end of last season, Josh King became actually a better option than Wilson. So I certainly think that maybe I could even change Wilson for Josh King. But again, it's that classic thing of wait for pre-season and see where Josh King is playing within the Bournemouth setup, but we all know he's going to be up front. Good evening, James Hyde. Welcome back to the third. I'm sure you were there early in the morning. I can't remember now. There's too many streams going on here, but good evening as ever. Simon and Anderson, Otamendi or Stones, Matip or Lovren. Oh, goodness me. Otamendi or Stones, two players which aren't guaranteed. Put it this way, the Man City correspondent on the... sorry, I completely forgot their name there. At Planet FPL. Made a very interesting point about Otamendi, Simon, which is he could be on his way out of Man City. I believe he said that. So I think Pep will just give it to Stones, to be honest with you. Matip or Lovren, I have no idea how much they are, so let's just quickly bring them up for the sake of argument here. I mean, to be honest with you, so Lovren's 5.5 and Matip, I'm guessing, is 5.5 as well. 5.5. I'd go with Robertson or Trent Alexander or Van der Vaart. Van der Vaart. What's his name? Van Dijk. I'd go with one of them, to be honest with you. If I was to go with one of the two, again, it's got to be Matip. Again, based on the Liverpool correspondent for the At Planet FPL podcast, my basic understanding is quite simply this. Matip is your man, and Lovren's pretty much a joke, to be honest with you. Sam Perry, don't recognise the game again. Thank you so much for joining the stream here. John McGinn. Yes, I've been told that John McGinn is actually one of the key players for Aston Villa, to be honest with you. So actually he could be the better option than the more popular pick if you are going to go with Aston Villa of Jack Grealish, who everybody knows about. So I think John McGinn is, again, someone worth monitoring. I think if we just quickly look over him for a second here, let's quickly bring him up. John McGinn here, which of course, oh, there he is there. My apologies. Yeah, again for 5.5 for their fixtures. I mean, look at that. I mean, a sea of green. So after Tottenham away, in which I just envisage a 2-0 loss, Bournemouth at home, Everton at home. Oh, that's going to be tough. Crystal Palace away, that's a decent fixture. And West Ham at home, it's an okay fixture. Wouldn't give it a agree. But it's these three here. Burnley at home, Norwich away, and Brighton home, Everton at home in game week 7, 8 and 9. That's the key when we're going to find out what Aston Villa are all about this season. James Hyde here, speaking of Palace, if Aaron Wan-Bissaka does go to Man United, which I think is pretty much done, to be honest with you, then Martin Kelly could be a starting 4 million defender. I briefly mentioned that a minute ago, actually, James, and I couldn't agree more with you. I absolutely, completely agree that Martin Kelly could push, depending on if Palace decide to bring in another right back. Then maybe pushing. I mean, I don't have a clue where his specific position is, but they could bring back Schlupp back in that position, but unlikely. So, absolutely. For a potential starting defender at 4 million, Martin Kelly could be a man. Notorious Nerd asking a nice question, but I'll just quickly address what's his face, John Harris's a wonderful comment there. Steve-O, sorry, but I'm not loving your team. Again, it's just a quick. Although what I will say is that, if I'm honest with you, the majority of that team there, so if I'm honest with you, I'm probably almost certainly definitely going to be going with that defence. Almost certainly. My goalkeepers, I may change Button, but Fabianski is a very high chance of me having him. But I may go with two. I'll probably end up going with two 4.5s, but it's that classic thing of where it just gives you a headache for rotation. So Fabianski at 5 million is set and forget. I'm pretty happy with. The strikers, I mean, that's the worst bit of my team. They I'm not going to lie, they are atrocious. Barring Wilson, but Long and Success. Again, they've just thrown in there for the sake of it. I've still got 0.5 in the bank. My midfield, again, barring De Bruyne, excuse me. Barring De Bruyne, these three here in Fraser, Richarlison and Salah, I'm going to stick with. So really, of my whole 15, 8 or 9 of the players, maybe even 10 including Kelly, I'm happy with. It's just really these 4 here which are my concern. But right now, let's put it this way. I could get rid of Laporte, get rid of De Bruyne, bring in Zinchenko, because like I said in the stream beforehand, I think that, so that gives me 11 million. Well, in theory, that gives me 11 million. Let's just get rid of Wilson. Let's bring in Josh King, shall we? Josh King there. That gives me 12.5. And then we'll get in that Sterling. That gives me 0.5 left. And what do you think about that? Not that we're specifically judging per se, but power 4 midfield. Like I said, Richarlison always starts off well. Sterling and Salah, we know what they're all about. I mean, these two here, I'm fully aware they are absolute clowns. But is there any... what's the lowest price for... I can't even click on this, can I? Typical. No, I can't click on any of that. Brilliant. But I'm assuming if you could let me know what the lowest price striker is, that'd be quite interesting to know. But yeah, I'll leave that team up for now. Any feedback or comments, that'd be quite interesting to hear. So 4.5 G-Wiz is saying is the cheapest midfielder, which means that would give me an extra million. So potentially I could somehow upgrade Shane Long to Jota. Shane Long's fixtures, look at the state of them. Blimey. Again, this is just... an absolute draft at the moment. There's no definite, but do you know what? That team ain't too bad. James Hyde asking, out of the Villa midfielders, I think Hourihane could be the best pick, although I don't know his price compared to... Well, we can bring it up, shall we? I'm sure he's 6 million, Hourihane. But let's just quickly find out. Hourihane. He's 6 million. So Jack Grealish is also 6 million. And then you've got McGinn at 5.5. And again, I've said this before, McGinn apparently is the more creative player or something like that. I can't blink and remember now, but it's something like that. I'm sure anybody that's an Aston Villa fan will be able to let you know. Simon Anderson asking, well, telling us really, Greenwood. Let's have a quick look at him, shall we? Greenwood of United. Is he 4.5, is he? Ha! Well, let's just get him in then. I'd rather have him than Isaac's Success, put it like that. Just get Greenwood in, shall we? Add player. That leaves me with 1 million, so I'm 0.5 out of getting Jota in. Well, I could potentially change Fabianski to a 4.5, but we're not going to do that for now. But thank you for that tip there. I'll tell you what I'll do, because I think this is quite important from an FPL community perspective. So, for anybody that doesn't know, and I'll bring them up now. So I'll bring up Twitter right now. I'm probably breaking all infringement laws, but I'm not breaking any infringement laws, for goodness sake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Twitter here. And I'm going to get you guys to be made aware, if you're not, and I'm sure all of you are aware of the @PlanetFPL podcast. If you're not, then I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go and check their stuff out on Instagram, on YouTube, because their content that they're doing regarding all things podcasts, their 30 and 30 over this June period have been absolutely superb. And what I'm going to do, and it will take a bit of time, but for anybody that is on Twitter and doesn't actually follow not only the @PlanetFPL but their correspondence, I highly recommend that you go and follow their correspondence. And what I'm going to do is, because basically I tweeted out these guys yesterday and I actually followed every single one of their correspondence that they've had live during their podcast, basically, who they've interviewed. And like I said, they are absolutely superb. The knowledge and information that you get given, it's just a question of finding it now, which of course I can't blink and find when you actually need to. Where did I tweet it out? That's me. You don't want to see me. It's definitely not up there. Just when you're wanting to promote another page, this all happens, doesn't it? So where are we? Ah, right. Here we go. Sorry, it's on a completely different feed here. This is going to test my eyesight, so I apologise if I come across really, really loud. Let's just make this as big as possible so I can actually read. So I really hope that you guys can actually see the screen right now. I know you can see it. I'll just make sure for definite. Yeah, right then. So far in the 1330, so basically they've obviously got 20 correspondents for each Premier League club, and each time they've done a podcast, they've got one of these experts on, or one of these guys on, to talk about their teams and what they think will be happening next season and stuff. And for any of you guys that are on Twitter, I highly recommend you follow these guys. So if I'm honest with you, I can't specifically remember which team they support. I will apologise, but if I remember some of them, then I'll let you know. So at Parker_Bradley, he's the Wolves correspondent. You've then got at FI_FPL Addict 123. For anybody that wants to actually oh, there we are. It comes up like that. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Right, there we are. Then it makes it a bit easier for you to see. Hopefully you can see this quite clearly. So this guy here, Paul, at Sky Player in FPL. I still need to listen to his podcast, but it's all about playing the Sky game, to be honest with you. And I heard that it was an absolute fantastic podcast. Like I said, at Parker Bradley, the Wolves fan. Really good episode that was. There we are there with FI_FPL Addict 123. At FPL Canal, he was the... I forgot which team he supported now. I'm sure it was one of it may have been Bournemouth. But he's definitely... That was a really good podcast. At FPL Pringle, as you can see there, a Man City fan. At 35Who is the Arsenal supporter. At FPL Gaffer. You then got at Is My Cap Playing? I love that name. I think that's absolutely fantastic. At AFCBNG. At FPL_Fitballer. You've got at FPL Foxy. At FPL Ricky Saunders. That was a very good podcast. That was a really enjoyable one, talking Tottenham. We all know this guy. At Let's Talk FPL. At Migtavius for Crystal Palace. At FPL Loco Lord. At Spirit Under Blues. This was a good one as well. Talking Everton. I really enjoyed that one. At Sixth Goal, the Watford guy. That was another enjoyable podcast, I must say. Here we are. At _Badger. FPL _Badger. This was a really good one. Talking Sheffield United. Someone called Tomo at FPL _Blade. That was really insightful, that one. And at Adam Hopcroft, you probably know him from Fantasy Scout podcast. Another one, absolutely, really. He's the Aston Villa correspondent for them. But again, that was an absolute superb podcast that I listened to today, coincidentally. But again, if you are on Twitter and you want to follow any of those guys, I highly recommend, just for the most basic insight into getting to know which of the random players that you may not know of, like the unknowns, like McGinn as an example, or Aarons or whatnot, I think are absolute pretty much must-haves, to be honest with you. I think their insight is absolutely critical to actually being successful. In fact, what I'm actually seriously thinking of doing is actually re-listening to what these guys say and just find out, almost like their bargain, so to speak. Good evening, Ray Joyce, and good evening to you. Thank you for coming on to the stream tonight. Really appreciate it, with obviously the game being launched. Big day. Very big day. I still can't get my head around the game's been launched, but so what I'll do is I'll just quickly go back to answering some of your guys, looking at your opinions, your thought processes, etc, because I find it really interesting just hearing from what you've all got to say, to be honest with you. But yeah. So Ray Joyce joins us. Dale Bellamy. Dale Bellamy's in chat. Saint Stevo, I can see a big season for West Ham, especially if they win the chase to get Maxi Gomez. Top 6 finish. Well, I personally don't. Again, this is going to show what I know about football, but I don't really know who Maxi Gomez is, so I apologise. But what do you guys think in chat? Is Dale right? Do you think that West Ham could have a really good season, get into the top 6? I mean, obviously, there's Leicester. There's, as we know, West Ham. Wolves will be trying to push again to be getting into the top 6. We're, of course, you know, the big 5, 6 in general. So Man City and Liverpool, they're going to be your top 2, you'd think. And then obviously it's down to Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United for the other 4 places. You know, it's going to be extremely difficult to be pushing for that top 6. And like I said, Leicester next season is the team for me, which I'm going to be looking at. Vince Chapman, Westwood at 5.5, bargain. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's what McNeil's price should have come in at. I think that McNeil should have been at 5.5. Westwood at 5.5 again, yeah, a complete bargain. I think if you're going to be playing like a 3-5, if you're going to be having a 5-man midfield, why not have Westwood for his decent fixtures? Notorious Nerd here saying, so many mid-price forwards to choose from this season. Can this be the season of the death of the premium forward? It was last year, wasn't it? So to speak. Last year was more, what was it, chop and change between all the big hitting forwards. So one week you'd have Aubameyang, then you'd have Kane, then it was Aguero for a few weeks, then you go back to Aubameyang, Kane gets injured, so then all you'd have was Aubameyang and Aguero alongside Jimenez. But of course Jimenez last season wasn't a premium forward. And then you had, what's his face, Callum Wilson at the start of the season doing so well. Then he went and got injured. So, as you can see from my team in front of you, I mean, admittedly, I'm going top heavy with my defenders. I've got the big hitting midfield of Sterling, Salah, Richarlison and Fraser. Certainly Salah and Sterling, you're talking 24.5 million alone in them two. 14 million in Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Again, my front 3, you know, again, I'm going to say this again. It's not going to be what my front 3 is going to end up like, but as Notorious Nerd makes the point, I think I'm probably going to end up playing a 4-5-1. I mean, we all know who Mark Southerns is, and he made this point for last season that having a one-man striker along with 5 midfielders and a decent defence was good enough. And look where he ended up. So I certainly do agree with you, Notorious, that this could be the death of the premium forward, unless, of course, Aubameyang, Kane, Aguero tear it up. It's as simple as it gets. They've got to tear it up. James Hyde, I recommend at Sky Podcast 2. It's mainly a Sky Fantasy channel and podcast, but he does talk about fantasy football too. The content applies to both games anyway. He usually has pass winners on, etc. If I'm honest with you, I predominantly look at the FPL stuff. I'm stating the blinking obvious. I've got so many podcasts to listen to. But again, if anybody else wants to take up James's recommendation there and go check out at Sky Podcast 2, you go ahead on Twitter and find out who they're all about. And of course, Jason's in chat. There he is there. Elite FPL, that'll be Jason chatting. Thank you for joining us, Jason. Be interested to hear your thoughts on, I know you haven't, but on your thoughts on a starting 11, what formation you're thinking of doing. But we'll find that out in person, I suppose, in the next few days. I think that predominantly, though, majority of us are going to be having virtually the same team, if I'm honest with you. Can you sort the mic out? Jason, yes. If I'm honest with you, I think it was Steve, my housemate, that sorted it out. But I honestly have no idea how I've sorted the mic out. But clearly it's working. I'm hoping I'm not too loud now as I was on the second podcast I did, because that was just blowing my ears off personally. But I'm glad that the sound is cool, and I've now spent money on something that actually works. Notorious Nerd asking, is Arnie still the best Hammers option? And James Hyde with Arnautovic as well. What are people's thoughts on Arnautovic? With Hernandez wanting to leave and Andy Carroll gone, he should be the main striker. It's all about if he moves to China. If there's any talk of him moving to China. But I think he is probably going to end up staying at Tottenham. At West Ham, to be honest with you, like you just brought up. And to be honest with you, is he an option? Let's have a look at their fixtures, shall we? Let's just... Because I find with Arnautovic, he's more of a flat track bully, if I'm right in saying. So, Arnautovic. Here we go. Let's bring him up. Let's bring up his fixtures. Of course, he did quite well towards the end of last season. Wow. In the first 5, he's got 2 of the promoted teams in there. Man City at home. Wouldn't surprise me if he actually scored against City. But Brighton home, Albion away. That's a solid fixture. Watford away. Again, a decent fixture. Norwich at home, Aston Villa away. How much is he? 7 million? I think the key to this game, in my opinion so far, I've already mentioned it before, is that because a lot of the player prices are so similar to each other, you could almost do switch changes, can't you? So for example, the obvious example is, if I mentioned it before and use this example, if Richarlison doesn't start off well but Sigurdsson does, you can easily swap them. If, for example, now admittedly he is 0.5 out, but you know, if you got Josh King like I have there for now, Josh King almost a straight swap to Arnautovic if you got 0.5 in the bank. Wilson could easily be swapped to Arnautovic, and in fact, there it is there. I've got $1 million left in the bank, for crying out loud. So, yeah, Arnautovic absolutely could be a very viable option based on the fixtures that I've just shown you there. And we all know his history. In fact, let's bring up his history there. You know, last season, not the greatest. We all know what happened though, him tailing off and getting injured and whatnot. But 10 goals, 5 assists. Season before that, 11 goals and 7 assists. So, and that was when he was... Was that the year when he joined West Ham, or the year after? Was that his last year at Stoke? And was last year his first season? I can't actually remember, but once again, it has no relevance to anything at the moment. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it there. I've been speaking way too much. This has been going on for a good solid well over an hour now, and I can only thank everybody that has joined me for joining me, basically. So, on to the advertising, I suppose. In all seriousness, if you've enjoyed the stream this evening, please hit that like button. If you're brand new to the stream and you've enjoyed what you've seen, just hit that subscribe button. It's quite easy. Just hit the subscribe button, and whenever we go live, it will notify you that we are going live. Regarding social media, I'm very active on Twitter, which is @EliteFPL. I'll bring it up here. So we're at EliteFPL. Like I said, I'm pretty active on there. I try and use it as much as I can, to be honest with you. Or try and get on there as much as I can, to be honest with you. It's one of those where, at the end of the day, I work full time and I can't be spending all day on there. But, you know, when I am on there, I do enjoy it. I do try and interact with as much as possible. Most of the time, I usually just put out polls because I just really enjoy doing polls, to be honest with you. But here's our Twitter page just here. Like I say, I wonder if anybody's any more votes coming for our poll at the moment. Oh, we have had more polls. So, like I said, I sent out a poll earlier on. I hate putting it for 24 hours. I stupidly just hit the tweet button rather than just setting it to... I always do polls for 3 or 4 hours, but 16 votes in, and the question was, what's more shocking today, the launch of the game or Salah's price? It stands at 88% for launch of the game and 12% Salah's price. Again, I just want to mention the fact that congratulations to Cameron Rawcliffe, aka the FPL Kid on Instagram. He won the Price Predictor game that we played the other day. He will be receiving an exclusive Elite FPL mug, which will be a bit of fun. And yeah, thank you, Notorious Nerd, for the kind words there. Really appreciate that. It should be me, Dan and Jason at some point in the next preceding days. I have no idea when, but obviously, like I said, keeping the loop by going on to our, being on Twitter, you'll find out specifically when we will be going live. That's the key. Also, like I've just mentioned, if you want to help us get to, well, in fact, let's say it now. If you haven't subscribed and you want to help us to get to 500 subscribers by the end of this evening, just hit that subscribe button now. That'd be great. But no, in all seriousness, thank you ever so much for watching. I'm going to cut it now, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Take it easy, and good night. And enjoy picking your teams. That's the important thing. Go with your gut. Take it easy, guys. Thank you.